Hello everyone and welcome to Gierok Farms. In today's video we are going to be AI breeding one of the cows here in the dairy herd. AI is artificial insemination for those of you that aren't familiar with it. It's a very valuable tool on a dairy farm like this one. But we hope you all enjoy the video. Let's get into it.
So first of all, there's companies like this one. There's several different ones in this area. They've probably got hundreds of bulls. This is all Holstein. They got the Jersey and the Brown Swiss and about everything you can imagine here. This data in here, now like for instance, here's a bull we use. This Cyrus-P. This section of the book is what they call polled. And that means that these bulls will throw genetics that don't allow the heifers to grow horns. It's one less thing we have to do as the calf is growing up. We don't have to snip the horns when they're naturally like that. A lot of beef breeds are like that already, but the Holstein has improved a lot in the years to get a cow to milk good and yet be pulled. So doesn't necessarily mean that the calf that we would get out of this cow today would be pulled, but that trait would already be in that calf. So if we use pull again in the future, it's maybe more likely. And then they got the graphs here that show all the traits of their stature, their shape. I mean, it's basically like judging beauty queens, but for milk production and shape and size of the udders and teat placement. And that's all on there. There's a lot of numbers that go with that. A lot of dairy guys that really get into that stuff. And then here's a gestation chart. And every one of these little red blocks, and I don't know if you can read all that, but usually this chart should be big enough to take up most of the barn door so you can actually read it and write on it. So you got 21 days, so all the red here is all the way to 21 days, and it goes white for 21 blocks. What that means is the cow cycle is 21 days. Like in a woman, it would be 30 days, for instance. And other species are different, but it's still 9 months as far as the gestation's concerned, but they will cycle every 21 days if they're not already pregnant. So what'll happen here, so if this cow got bred today, I would write in her block her number, when I bred her to and everything. And like I said, this should be bigger for that. This is just a small version. And then in 21 days, if she's acting like she's possibly in heat again, cycling again, I can look on this chart and say, yes, it lines up really close to the 21-day increment. This is just a reference to help us determine whether they're truly in heat. Now, we do have a live bull, too. He's a red Holstein. He was bought from a high genetics herd, and every 2 years we have to replace him because what'll happen is eventually his daughters will come of age, and you don't want to use him on his own daughters, of course. But in this case, it is winter time, an older cow. It's dark a lot. He's already with a lot of heifers, so it's never safe working around an older bull anyway. So we'll artificially inseminate, I would say, up to close to half of our Holsteins, our dairy herd. Almost all my heifers get bred with my live bull. Once in a while, I'll artificial inseminate one, which, like for instance, in the calf barn, if they're of age and it's winter time, we're not going to just move that one up there with the bull. It's icy, snowy, and all those other things of that. So if I had a heifer in heat or a younger cow and I wasn't quite sure she was in heat, I would put her with the bull. And he will not service her unless she's actually cycling. He will sniff her, he will detect that heat if it is a heat, and then I'll go record it one way or the other. So if it's not a heat, well, then it's just what we call a false heat. Now this cow today, she's a little older. I know my cows quite well, especially the older ones because they've been around a long time. And when they're acting different, maybe when you're feeding them, they'll be trying to lick you, or they'll be trying to, almost like try to jump up on you. And so when we put them out every day, that's where we detect our heat. As soon as they get released out into the barnyard with the other cows, and they start to mingle, and if other cows are trying to mount her, or she's trying to mount other cows, that tells us that's a heat. So that's just something that's animal behavior that we learn, through time. You can detect that by just glancing at these animals eventually. And then eventually they're in heat and we're bumping calves. And let's just say especially with a small herd, you just know your cows, quite well. And this here is my inventory sheet. And right now I only have 3. I got only 1 Jersey left, and that's what we're going to use today. This is one of our blue roans. She's a lot older. And we're gonna just mix it up a little bit. We're gonna put that in there. They're usually a little cheaper. This cow being older, she was bred already once before. And it's, you know, it's about 20 bucks a straw on the Holsteins. It can go up to 60 bucks, maybe more. So we average around $20 a straw, and then some of the off breeds are always a little bit less, like the Swiss and that. It all depends on the genetics. So the person who sells me this stuff will write that in here, and we'll show you where that's stored. So that'll tell me what's in my tank. What I'm gonna have to do, I'll go through the sequence of what I do to breed a cow. So now I got two different guns here. This gun has got this little nub sticking up out of it. They're both virtually the same otherwise as far as length and stuff. That's what they call the quarter cc. Some companies will sell straws a quarter cc. I'm not sure if this is called a cc straw or what, but this is the larger ones. They're easier for me to handle. I think most farmers will say that. And this would be the straw we're using today. This is just the one that was used already. I just had out here as a reference, and then there's all these fine numbers on there, and good luck reading all that without a good pair of glasses and good light. But that'll tell you what bull and its actual number, like a serial number, for instance. And then, of course, I can go into these books. You probably can find that all online too, and you know, really fine-tune your genetics, so to speak. But anyway, so we're going to be using the larger one here, and what I do is I put that down into my shirt. So it has to get up to body temperature. Now the cow's temperature is 101 and ours is 98. So you don't want it warmer. You will kill the semen in that straw. So this here is just an ordinary thermos, but it's got a thermostat in it. And there's basically just a small hole drilled in the top with this thermostat. And what I'll do is I'll put warm water in there, and then I'll watch the dial, and there's a little green section. It's somewhere, looking at this, it's somewhere between 90 and 95 degrees. So if it goes slightly over, we're still okay. We don't want it to go over 101, because again, it's better to be slightly cooler. And of course, in the colder months like we have now, we have to be, so when I start this process, I have to be zipping through it quick and get the semen inside the cow, so that the sperm, because this is in a tank with liquid nitrogen. I think it's 360 degrees below zero in there. I mean, it's really cold, liquid nitrogen. So if I was able to put my finger down in that hole, it would fall off. It's one of those things when you got little people around, you need a little lock on that we have to be very careful. And the hole on there is not very big, so no big person is going to be able to. And then you don't want someone to put a foreign object in there or something. But anyway, that's how that works. So it's not something to just, if it's done right, it's safe. So we're just going to warm the water to lukewarm. You know, I can almost tell you do it so many times, and then we'll watch your needle. And it looks like we could just use a dab of hot yet. And there we are, right in the middle. So now we're going to go out to our tank. So I look at my inventory card, and my jersey is in canister 3. There's 6 canisters in there, so we'll show you that. Now I have this box I built for my semen, and it's just out of plyboard, and it's kind of almost like a jewelry box lid. And I could put a lock on here. Right now we don't have no little people running around here, so we don't worry about that. So we're going to set that there. We're going to get my lid just off a little bit. We're going to open our hole, and then this little cork, and you see the steam already. Even though it's below freezing outside here, you still see it. So we're going to look, and then there's numbers by every one of these, and we are on canister 3, and then they're all color-coded too, which just kind of helps you. Now I'm going to pull that up quick, and I'm going to let it down so you can see. So there's a canister, but I don't want to. Now I only have one straw left in here, so I guess we're kind of safe with this guy. We're going to use them anyway. And then usually the Holsteins are green, and the jerseys are pink, and then we're going to throw them in there. And then we got to get this back into its insert. And this thing here is maybe about the size of 2 5-gallon pails, and they'll come in different sizes. And the guy that sells the semen, he's the only other guy that would mess with this. Although a little bit of skill, and you can't expose your semen. It kind of, if you thaw it out, it's no good anymore. You can't just freeze it again and it'll be good. And then what I do here is my inventory card. I will put a little X, and that means them are gone. So I don't have to actually look in the tank. That stays in my little box here. Then I got my scissors ready here that I'm going to cut the end of the straw with. And these here are what they call sheaths. It's kind of like a straw. I'll get one of those ready. 1 or 2 paper towels. Put one in my pocket. And we're ready to grab that straw out of there. Now it probably only needs a few seconds to thaw out, but this is how they taught me how to do this. Wipe the water off. And then there's 2 ends. There's a cork on that end. There's a pinched end there. You cut it slightly at a slant. You pull out your sheath. You got this little blue plunger in there. And I'm gonna make sure he inserts in there. By now, my stainless steel straw is up to my body temperature. So I pull the gun back, fit them inside there, spin them on. And then on this end, there's like a little bit of thread. And it threads onto that straw. And then this comes right to the end. We push our plunger. See the semen come. Yep, little bubble of semen. Now this goes back down in my shirt. And you want to do this when you're clean. So typically my underclothes are very clean compared to my outer clothes, but that now has got to stay reasonably sanitary. And I dump that out, put it back in here. And then one more little thing I have to do is there's a little bit of semen on here, and this is something that people overlook. I wipe that off. There we are. Now I have to put a glove on. You can buy these in a box of 100. And you use your left hand. Now, if you're right-handed, you could use your right hand, which I think is whatever you're comfortable doing, but because I have to go into her rectum, and I like using a sleeve like this because I can kind of pull it over it and it kind of hangs up onto that. In summertime, I don't have all that. Now, and then this is lubricant. This is almost like, just like a gel, and that'll be, I'll have it in my, now we go find the cow. You always want to make sure your cow is caught. You want to make sure that because it's kind of about time. So here we rub that around her anus there. And we go in. Now, like I said, I'm lubed up a little bit. And I see she's got a little manure in her. So now we got to paddle that manure out. Now, ideal situation would be is if she took a dump right before you come here. Now, it's definitely a heat. You see this clear? That definitely tells me this cow is in heat. That is very clear. It's all good. If it was really milky looking, if I had her with the bull, it might already look milky looking, meaning that he had his way with her. Then I know that that was taken care of that way. But, or it's an infection. Like we see that too sometimes, very rare. But anyway, everything looks good here. Now these older cows can be a little interesting because they had many calves already. Now I'm looking for her cervix. Now I'm on the outside of her uterus. I'm not in by her uterus. I'm on the cervix side. That is the side that, well, I guess the simple way would be to explain is that you don't have to be nearly as careful with. You don't go, the only thing that goes inside that cervix is that sheath. So now I'm going to wipe this area a little bit. Get another towel and get the manure off the back of my glove there. And then I'm going to go up in her uteral. And in her, she's kind of arched up, so you got to feel your way in there. Now the semen is safe. It's already in body temperature. Now, I could take 10 minutes trying to place the semen in the right place. So that's the key now, to place it in the right place. Now I'm gonna have to get a little more of this manure out of the way because she's pushing. Like I said, ideal would be if she would have took a dump right before I went in. And it's natural for her, and it's probably a little irritating to her, but it's as big as she is, it's okay. There, I found her cervix. And it's kind of like pushing this thing in through a stiff sock. And it's about the size of an end of like the part on a baseball bat that you'd hold. That's how big her cervix is. And they're all a little bit different. And older cows are a little bit crooked and bent. A heifer that hasn't had a calf yet, the cervix is about the size of your pinky. They're really easy to find and to get through, but everything is very small in there. Now I can feel I'm in the right place. Oh, there, yeah, okay. Now I gotta make sure I'm in the right spot. Now I put the semen in to that area. So I'm only through the cervix like that far. Now I'm gonna grip this really hard and unturn this. So my gun is nice and clean. And then another thing they taught me to do is look on the end, and sometimes you gotta get in the light. And if you see a little dab of blood on there, that means you might have scratched something through the cervix. You might have got a little too far. It doesn't hurt her. It just might interfere with her becoming pregnant this time around. You know, you might disturb something a little bit that way. And there's a little science to some of that, but everything here looks really, really good. And everything felt really good. And she's definitely in heat because that was a little bit of a question mark with this cow. So now I'm gonna take my glove off. I'm gonna fold this. Even though my hands aren't as clean as everyone else's, there you are. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll put this back down there, and then I record her. And this is how I do it. And the large farms will use computers, and my goodness, by the time I boot up a computer, I'll have this thing whipped. So number 19, we put down the date. What do we got? 29. Bull. That's how I do it. And then if I had that table I showed you in there when we were loading the gun, that would be like on our barn door, and I would be able to go over there and look, and then if if this doesn't work, roughly 21 days, 23 days, 24, yeah, it'll vary a tiny bit, but anyway, if it lines up real close to that, when she's starting to show heat again, it's very likely a heat again. So let's say we're on the 29th here is our day. So here it'll say, if I breed on the 29th of December, she should calve around October 5th. Now, the only ones that are different is the brown Swiss. You gotta add about 11 days. Don't ask me why. They say they're the oldest breed in the world. There might be some other odd breeds in this world that are like that, but that's the only one I know, especially the dairy breeds. That can throw you for a loop a little bit, because 11 days is a long time. She's supposed to be due, and she wouldn't even be showing yet. So then I'll have to breed them 10 days earlier, too, than I typically would. So you typically, after she had her last calf, I go about 90 days. They say you can start early breeding about 60 days, but that usually the fertility is very low then, and if you're going to stick money into her, you're going to want to be sure this is going to work. So I may stick her with the bull. Maybe if she's 80 days or 70 days, maybe I'll just stick her with the bull. And then if that don't work, the next round I can, when it's closer to the actual time. So roughly they'll have a calf every year or slightly more than a year, which is okay. It can be a little longer. So then it'll show on here too, if she don't breed, the next heat will be January 19th, which is 21 days. So that's kind of how that works. And this will hang in my barn there, along with the breeding information. Other stuff's on here too. But so we're always on that day. And the same as this company will bring these calendars to me. So that's kind of how that works. That's how I do it. The bigger herds will have all sorts of other ways of doing things. And then when we buy semen, they will give you these. They'll give you the gloves. And of course, some of the lubrication just helps you get in there. You can use hot water too, or warm water. I mean, that's all good too. I think the bigger thing with this stuff is timing. And I think the ideal person to actually breed cows is a tall, skinny woman, long, thin arms. And then have that very calm voice and stuff, because cattle really pick up on that stuff. I guess it's just kind of an instinct. Yeah, so everything's in here all nice and neat and kept out of the dust and that for the next time we go. So I'm sure there's a lot of other questions, and I do have a manual that shows the cervix, and when they trained me, they actually even brought my brother here, and they trained us right here, and we didn't necessarily even need a cow in heat to do this, but they just give you the general layout of what to do. And then after we've done a few, our confidence level was getting better and better. And once you start getting calves, it's just like riding a bike. But it's all about timing. So she shows heat like in the morning. First thing I came here, she was acting different. Then I went out with the other cows too. I noticed, yeah, she's probably in heat. And then you'd breed her in the evening chore time. And if I see her now something in heat tonight, evening, I would breed her tomorrow morning. That's generally how you do it. But with the bull, you would put her with him as soon as you see her in standing heat, which means she will stand while he could mount her or other cows mount her. But he puts in, oh goodness, he could put in a whole pint, I don't know, but a lot. And we're only putting this little tiny bit in there, but we're putting exactly where it belongs. His is all on this side of the cervix, and it just like nature does, those little swimmers will find their way through, and it only takes one, and goes down the fallopian tube and finds the egg. There you go.
We did film a video like this about 2 years ago, so if you want a different perspective on that, a lot of similar stuff, but we might have covered some different topics or ways of doing things, so check out that video. Also, you cattle guys, let us know how you do it and what type of genetics you prefer. Any big hitting Holstein bulls out there, maybe leave them down in the comments. We'd be interested to hear about it.
So we usually lean towards a little bit shorter. The Holsteins that are built a little bit more like a shorthorn. I've noticed that the industry has gotten those really tall ones, and they all look good and they can milk really good, but they have been known to have problems, and if they do, they don't recover very good. It's kind of like in people too. Usually, the more petite you are, they just last longer. They're easier to work with, and it's been proven that the small cows can milk just as good as the large ones. So that's where we lean on a lot of that, and that's part of why we're mixing a little shorthorn in, and maybe a touch or two of Jersey. And it seems like when the shorthorn, especially if you get a bull calf, they're worth more. Yeah. Besides. So there's always kind of a win on these things that way.
And that's a huge benefit of artificially inseminating, AI breeding on a dairy farm like this, is that genetic game of acquiring the cattle you want and making your herd what you want is a lot quicker versus having a live bull on the farm. It's hard to have this many options. Right. As you would with AI.
I mean, and that's really the thing. And we buy a bull from a really high, genetic herd, but even they don't know. It's a healthy animal. It's going to give you calves. I've been here over 33 years, and we've never been a day without a bull. Typically, when we go look at a bull, maybe on sale day, we'll take our old bull and go pick up that new bull and bring him back here. Because you don't necessarily want to have two together. They may or may not fight. I mean, that's a territorial thing, kind of like he's been already here 2 years, so he's going to play boss. And then, of course, they can get interesting. And once you know bulls, you've been with bulls, you understand bulls, it's like anything else in the world. As long as you're aware and you're doing what you're supposed to do, they can be fine. But you kind of, in a sense, you don't turn your back. And that's another reason why once in a while certain cows or certain days when it's icy or if it's dark already and stuff, it's probably maybe not worth it. Better off to just stick the $20 Semen in, and then of course she doesn't have to get booted around as much in the whole idea of getting pregnant by him.
Yeah, so I hope you learned as much as I did. This is a very educational video, and thanks to Dad for taking time to.
Yeah, I like to educate. So, like he said, and you guys can probably look up some of this stuff other places. Now, I don't have all the exact terms, but I did study that book a lot. It was like a binder that had about 40 pages in it, and it did give quite the description of how to do this. And it's just like an owner's manual to a machine you just don't know. And eventually, between the owner's manual and the machine, you eventually get more and more confident of what everything's trying to do and tell you to do. So,
So thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time.